Well, good to have you with us. Just gone 8:30 on the Tuesday edition of the South African Morning. Now, for women speaking out against abuse, it often leads to even more victimization from authorities, and in some cases, the risk of losing their job. Reporter Silindelo Masikane caught up with one woman who was warned that she'd be committing career suicide if she continued to pursue a sexual assault case against one of her superiors. Slee's been looking at that prominent cases, and that's also been covered in the past couple of months. Joining us live now. Hello to you, Slee. So just take us through what we know about this case, because it's now coming out. It's not unusual for this kind of intimidation.
So what we know, of course, Gareth, is that the suspect in this matter has made an appearance in court, in fact, yesterday, but that matter was postponed. But the victim, or should I say the survivor in this particular matter, has been trying to get authorities within the judicial services to hold this person accountable to no avail. She's approached several of the bodies, written to them to say that I have been harassed and I've been sexually assaulted by an acting judge, an officer of the court. And one would imagine that somebody who has access to legal services, an advocate in her own right, would be able to actually get accountability in this matter. But like many women in this country, she has been struggling to get justice. Let's just take a listen to what she had to say to me around the processes that she followed to try and get her matter not only in the courts, but also recognized within the profession.
But it has affected me in the sense that by virtue of having been informed by colleagues to say, listen, it'll be career suicide for me to persist in this. People are ostracized. In calling out what is deemed to be powerful men because they couldn't keep their hands to themselves. And it's definitely not an attack on men or anyone in specific, but it's a reality of, I think, not only myself, but a lot of people that endure in a number of professions, that endure to be ostracized and put aside, worked out, because they chose to speak out and say, actually, no, this is wrong. I never asked you to put your hands on me. I never gave you consent. There was no permission. And now that I'm calling you out for it, it seems that now it is deemed, rather, that I have committed the crime.
So now, of course, we have to go through the experience, doesn't she, of having to report this case of assault as well. And how is she getting it addressed? Because a lot of people we've heard from, Slee, say this is probably where the second victimization comes in.
So not only did she approach the professional bodies within the legal fraternity, but she had actually written to the Department of Justice, to the minister, to try and have this issue addressed. She was then told to actually write to the president. And not only are her colleagues within the fraternity telling her that this is going to be detrimental to her career, but she's been ostracized, and she fears that this is obviously going to affect the way in which she'll be able to support her family. But she says that this is important to her, and she feels that she needs to speak out to be able to give others an opportunity, or the courage rather, to be able to also be able to report their own experiences. Let's take a listen.
It hasn't been, not only has it been an emotive process for me, myself, and personally, but this is factual. On this date, I said this. Please help me. What is going on? What is this? And I filed all my responses in a very concise fashion, in a very comprehensive fashion. So I'm like, I've asked you for help. This is what happened. Why haven't you said anything? Why is it seen as such taboo to say, listen, this person says they're a judge, this is what they did to me, and you say nothing? Wow, okay.
And it's what we've been hearing from so many NGOs, Slee, as well, is this is why a lot of victims of GBV just don't bother to ask for help, because they just don't feel like it's going to get them anywhere. But at what point, though, did Afriforum get involved here?
So for about a year of her trying to actually get this matter addressed, she finally resorted to approaching Afriforum's private prosecutions body that's led by Advocate Khairinal, because at some point the NDPP had actually stated that they weren't going to prosecute due to lack of evidence. But seemingly when Afriforum got involved, all of a sudden there was a turn of events and the NPA decided that they would be prosecuting this particular matter. Let's take a listen to one of the officials from the private prosecutions body.
What we have here is a prime example of selective prosecution, where an accused person is protected by the authorities by virtue of the status that they hold in a particular arena. In this one, it's in the legal fraternity. People not willing to take action against this individual. He is a former legal aid manager. He's a former member of or he's a former acting judge. So holding a senior position within the legal fraternity, and all levels within the legal fraternity, from the LPC to the NPA and so on, not willing to take action because of this. So it shows that despite the serious commitments we hear from government that they take gender-based violence seriously, that it will no stone left unturned and so on, that when it comes to somebody with power in a certain sphere, that they are quite willing just to turn a blind eye.
All right, now that Afriforum's involved, Slee, before I say goodbye for this morning, I imagine at least more hopeful that justice will be served?
Certainly at this point she is. The matter is now before the courts, and for her it's just really important that her story then gives courage to other women to be able to speak out despite the threats against her own livelihood. Let's take a listen.
I hope that justice is served. All I want is for the accused never to feel that he's entitled, or anyone else is entitled, particularly in the position or name-dropping himself as a judge, to feel that they can do what they want to do by virtue of them being in a particular office or particular profession or holding a particular position, that they can feel they can do whatever they want to do. No one is entitled to do that. And I wasn't able to understand how a sexual predator who is, or rather was, a gatekeeper of the law, sitting in holding a high judicial position, would be able to convict another sexual predator. That was quite odd. That is odd.
No, you stay with us here on eNCA throughout the day as we continue our focus of the GBV epidemic here in South Africa.